Hello, everybody. It's Tori, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Debrief podcast. What is up, you guys? Happy Monday. In today's episode, we're really going to be talking about what it's like to be a mixed individual, specifically in the white and black communities. But also, more on a personal level, we're going to be talking about certain struggles that I face being a mixed individual. Now, I'm very, very excited to talk about this topic. I have so many experiences I want to share with you guys and so many thoughts I want to share with you. And honestly, I've been thinking about this all week. But I really want to bring light to kind of what I've been feeling as a mixed individual in the mixed community in general. So without further ado, let's get straight into the topic. Okay, I lied. So before we start the episode, I just want to talk about where we are. And if you're watching this or listening to this on Spotify, I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to see the video. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can kind of get a feel of where we are. And that is that I'm in my dorm. And this is really great because the reason why I wanted to create this podcast and call it quote unquote the dorm debrief was because I wanted to film these videos in the comfort of my own dorm to show that I am still a young college student growing as an individual, as an adult in modern day life. And that's really why I wanted to just put that out there really quick, because we're finally in the dorm, and this is why I called this podcast the Dorm Debrief. So the first thing we're going to talk about is family dynamic. And so for me, I have mixed parents. So my mom is black, my dad is white. But most of the time I was around my mom's side of the family, which is all black. And a normal person might think, your mom's black, so you're part black, so really what's the issue? And the truth is that there sometimes is an issue, and it comes to, number one, obviously, it has to deal with the type of people, whether they're accepting or not. But, for my family, it's not that they weren't accepting, but I found a lot of issues coming from young childhood that carried into adolescence and carried into adulthood that were primarily due to the fact that I didn't look black. And I know a lot of people might be thinking, and I get this all the time, you guys, honestly, I can't even be annoyed because people don't know, it's not their fault. But I get a lot of comments and a lot of feedback from other people saying, oh, you look Latina. I would never assume that you were mixed or that you were black, and all of these things. So it was never kind of like I fit in the black community. And obviously, there are some people who say, oh, yeah, you do look mixed, but I'm not physically black. And although that's not an issue, it does cause some problems when it comes to kind of understanding things and, like I said, family dynamic. So to give an example to the kind of issues that arose from this was that for me, I always kind of felt alone within my own family. And this was because of 2 reasons. Number one, because like I said earlier, I'm the only person on my mom's side who is physically white. And number 2 is that I'm the only person in my specific age group. And what I mean by this is that I have cousins who are 10 years older than me, and I have cousins who are 10 years younger than me. So it's really always been kind of me in this awkward place within my family. I was only kid my age, growing up in my family. So I didn't really have any other kids to play with, any other girls or, boys to grow up with. So I was always around adults. And yeah, that did contribute to me kind of feeling out of place and kind of feeling a little bit awkward and alone. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there was a kind of a racial aspect to it. And I always, I don't know about y'all grandmas, but my grandma, she would always throw a big Christmas party. She was always throwing things, and she wanted everyone to be together. And, as I got older, I learned to appreciate those things. But, when I was younger, there was a lot of things that, I was self-conscious about, and I was always observing things. And I wasn't quiet. I was a very talkative and chatty kid. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't confident within myself. And so when I was younger and I would have these events where it was all black people in the room, a lot of times I felt left out. And not even at these events, but within those smaller family gatherings when we would have dinner together, or we would just have people down to relax or to talk, it would always be little old Tori, kind of young me. And, the older people, the quote unquote seniors, would be talking about things, and they would be laughing and doing all these things. And I would just kind of be in a corner somewhere watching TV or, playing a game on an iPad or something like that. And I would hear them talk about these things that I didn't understand. And so I've never felt like I was given the opportunity to feel included, to be able to relate to these things or understand what they were talking about. And you might be thinking, oh, maybe it was because you were young, and maybe, those were more adult conversations. But it did carry on to, and it still is, now. I love my family very, very dearly. But it is still that now. And it's just because of the family dynamic and just because of the place and time that I really was born. It's always been just me. But, my family has always seen me as a very, very independent person. So maybe they felt like they didn't need to explain certain things to me. But that doesn't mean that the lack of inclusivity and the lack of explaining and making me feel honestly seen for who I was didn't impact me. So, circling back to family dynamic, for me, I was actually just talking about this the other day, because yesterday I actually went to an African Student Association event on campus, which, by the way, was absolutely amazing. It was so, so fun. But, going back to family dynamic, I just knew I was Black. My mom, she's African American, and that's literally, I've always asked, hey, Mom, I know we're African American, but where are we from ethnically? And no one knew. My aunts, my grandma, no one really knew. And it's we might be very far gone from whatever part of the country we are actually originally from, but just because we're kind of far gone from our original roots doesn't mean that it's not important to know and to associate with ourselves with a certain ethnicity and with a certain culture. And that's always been something that I've thought about, and I know that my family hasn't thought about. So that kind of contributed to this loner mindset and me feeling kind of alone within my family, because it seemed like I was the only one who cared about where do I come from. And what I think that was the reason why I cared, because I was the only person who didn't physically fit in. And because of that, I was like, well, I want to know, where honestly do I even fit in? So that's really where that came from. And I think, like I said, it comes all the way down to just the way that our family works, the way that I was raised, and the way that I grew up. And that has caused me to, as an adult, be very interested and excited about learning my culture and learning who I am. And I actually didn't mention this, not that you guys really care that much, but I am very, very strong on my Italian genes. My dad is a first generation Italian, so I know for a fact, I guess I can find comfort in that, but I know for a fact that I am deeply rooted in Italian culture. But, just because I'm deeply rooted in Italian culture on my dad's side doesn't mean I don't want to know what ethnicity and what culture I belong to on my mom's side. And because I've always felt like I don't belong there, it makes it extra important to me. So if anyone is wondering, if they want to find out where they're from ethnically, but your family doesn't really know and no one really talks about it, as an adult, it is your job to take care of that now. And if it's really, really important to you, then my advice would be to go get a DNA test. I know that I've been saving up for a DNA test. They're really not that expensive, but as college students, y'all know literally everything $5 and up is expensive. But, just for me, I've just been really, really wanting to get that done and see where I come from. And I feel like the older I get, the more important that is. Okay, so now that I blabbed enough about that topic, y'all, I could really talk about that for hours. But to move on to the next thing I really, really want to talk about is physical appearance. And this one is going to be a little bit shorter, but it really just comes down to the fact that, like I hinted at in the earlier part of the video, I said, I have a lot of people who come up to me and they're like, oh, are you Latina? Or they speak Spanish to me. And I'm like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And there are other people who, what's your race? What's your ethnicity? And I'm like, well, I'm mixed between Black and white. And like, oh, I could see that. Or like, oh, really? I would have never guessed that. And, it's kind of coming from this assumption that, not all the time, but I think it comes from an underlying assumption of what white girls and Black girls are supposed to look like. And the fact that I'm like this between both of them is sometimes, it can be hard to decipher, and that's completely, completely understandable. But, what that means for me as an individual was, how do I portray myself as a black woman, as a white woman, but not overstepping any boundaries. And, I find that I found that very, very hard. And I still honestly do, if I'm being vulnerable and if I'm being fully transparent, I do still find it hard because, in our day and age, there's so many things, like, I feel like that you can overstep. There are so many boundaries that are there, and but I really want to focus on like a key point here, and I'm going to bring in the example of like braiding hair. So, for a lot of us, as black women, braiding hair was originally like a form of sisterhood. Well, it became a form of sisterhood through the fact that it was a form of communication. Like, we had to braid our hair because for us, that was the way we communicated with each other and made escape routes from slavery, right? So really that's where that came from a black woman and a black man's perspective. But, because I am mixed, that means that I not only, yes, I take qualities from my mom's black side, but I also take qualities from my dad's white side, which means that I'm not going to have all of the qualities of a black woman. And so I had to learn that I have to be okay with there's some things that I just might not get, I might not understand, and I might not be able to do. It's a tough reality, but I had to come to that conclusion and be okay with who I am with these mix of, ethnicities and races together as an individual. And so when we're talking about hair braiding, specifically, I completely admire what black women can do with our hair. Like, it's really amazing. Like, all of the braiding styles, all of like, especially the Fulani braids, like those eat down every time. I love those. But, just because, I like them, I can appreciate them, but that doesn't mean that necessarily I have to get them. And I say that because, if you have a hair texture that can be braided, that's cool. But my hair texture, like I said, because, I got the genes from my dad's side more, my hair is a lot thinner. It's not meant to be braided. And I'm going to make a key point here is that just because that I am a black woman doesn't mean that my hair is meant to be braided. And I had to kind of come to a realization with myself with that. But that doesn't mean that I can't get braids at all. That just means that there's some styles that, might be overstepping the boundary, might be culture appropriation, and that honestly aren't good for my hair. Like I said, I have thin hair. You think someone pulling at my hair really, really tight and, knotless braids is going to be healthy for my scalp? No. In fact, it actually makes my hair fall out. I got braids. I'm gonna put it up on the screen because they like ate down, bro. Like, they were so good. I got my hair done for the first time. These were actually the first braids that I got, and I absolutely were in love with them. I want to get these again. And this was a very simple style. Like, I've had my mom Dutch braid my hair before, like just my natural hair, but this is the first time I've got it, professionally, like actually braided with extensions and everything. And I absolutely loved it. But, with that, I realized that after having it for a while, like, my hair started to fall out because my hair is not made for that type of tension. My hair texture is too thin. It is not coarse enough. It was not meant to be braided, and that's okay. But that is just one of the struggles and one of the things that I've had to go through to realize, like, it doesn't make me any less of a black woman, and it doesn't make me any more of a white woman, but that's just the I would say the conclusion. No, not the conclusion. Y'all, what's the right word? The product of, the product of, me being biracial, and that's okay. Now, like I said, I am not trying to get political, and if you don't agree with me, then I really don't know what to tell you. This might not be the podcast for you. I am entitled to my own personal beliefs, but, to go on to the fact and not to get too deep into it. But I do believe, sometimes, like I said, for me personally, protective hairstyles are not made for my hair texture. But, curly girls know it is really, really hard to take care of our hair. Curly guys know it's hard to take care of our hair. So if you have a hair texture that can withstand that tension, and that if you were to put it in a protective style or put it in braids or whatever you do, and it will actually help your hair grow and help preserve your hair, then go for it. Like I said, that's my personal opinion. Yes, with that, there are boundaries. There are limits. But I'm going to be honest with y'all. Black people are not the only people that get their hair braided and have been getting their hair braided for centuries. They're not. Like, there are other cultures and other ethnicities of people who have been braiding their hair in maybe protective styles or other styles, but we all have to be very culturally aware of each other and not really necessarily put people down for getting their hair braided without knowing the full story. But so to move on to the next topic, what I really want to talk about is, more of the social aspect to being biracial and to being mixed, what it's like to be, have friendships and to especially go to a PWI. And I'm really, really going to hint at this because currently now, as many people know, Penn State is a PWI. And for those of you who don't know what a PWI is a predominantly white institution. And we see that in a lot of American school systems, not even American school systems. We see that a lot around the world, especially in European countries, because we know that originally schools were segregated and Black people didn't have a lot of the same access that white people had in schools. And it's kind of rigged that way due to racial injustice, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So what I realized being a mixed woman and a mixed individual going to predominantly white institutions, I'm a hint at high school. I had friends of various cultures and of various ethnicities. And that's what I realized, is that I've never really stuck with one side. I never really predominantly was in the Black community, nor was I predominantly in the white community. I was always, like I said about the family dynamic earlier, in this awkward in between. But it wasn't until high school that it started becoming less awkward. I started realizing, I don't have to pick a side, because I'm not either. And a lot of people say, you're mixed, oh, you're Black or you're white, but it's no, I'm not though. I'm both. So I can't fully say, I'm a full Black woman and I'm a full white woman. I'm neither, I'm both. And that's kind of portrayed in my friendships. Like I said, I had friendships of all different cultures and it wasn't just one side. And that kind of carried into college a little bit. But what I do have to say about college is that I've kind of found my community with the Black community at Penn State. And this isn't necessarily me picking a side, but like I said, growing up, I never really felt comfortable in the Black community. I never felt like I belonged. But it wasn't until I came to Penn State where all my friends are Black, and not only are they Black, they're actually, most of them are Nigerian, and I have one Jamaican friend. But I'm forever and so grateful that I'm able to have a sense of belonging in the Black community after all of these years. And I'm finally learning about these cultures and, my potential culture and my potential ethnicity that is so important to me. Before I move on, I really just want to hint at something really quick. And just because, I'm making light out of the situation, and just because, I go to PWI, I've been going to PWIs, I know what it's like. I don't want to overshadow the fact or go over the fact that I have, experienced racial discrimination and racial discrepancies within PWIs, and that stuff still happens, you guys. Racial discrimination and racism in general is very much still prominent. I don't want anybody to think that, I'm going to blow over that, because I experience and I still at Penn State, at my old high school, at my old schools, just in life in general, there are many racist people still out there. And you can't change that, but I don't want it to seem, because of this color of my skin, just because I look white, doesn't mean that I haven't seen and that I'm ignorant to, or that I haven't experienced racial discrimination myself. And sometimes it is those uncomfortable situations as a mixed person, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this and has experienced this. If you're mixed and you're watching this, you probably know what I'm talking about, and you probably know how this feels when you're in a certain sticky situation with someone, how it feels to have someone feel like they can hate on your other side because of the color of your skin. I have had friends anyways, I have had friends that because of the color of my skin, they disregard the fact that I am still Black. Let me say that again. Because of the color of my skin, I have had friends that have disregarded that I am still Black. And let's just say those people I no longer talk to, obvious reasons. But, at the same time, that stuff still happens. And that's one of the struggles that we go through as mixed people, having to create boundaries with people. Like, no, like, you can't just come up to me and because I look white, disregard the fact and, say something racist about black people because I'm like, whoa, hold up. You do know that I'm black, right? What's that meme? It's like, y'all know what I'm talking about. You do know that I'm black, right? Like, but, anyways, but, yeah, like certain situations like that. And it can be the other side too. Like, when, my black friends are talking about white people, I'm like, you do know that I'm white, right? So it's kind of the sticky situations that, we automatically kind of get put into and we have to know how to handle. Okay, y'all, so the last thing that I want to mention is that being mixed, you have the best of both worlds. And I don't care. I will lie on this till the day I die. Because really, whatever you're mixed with, whether it's black or white or Latino and black or, whatever it is, right? Like, you have to come to a point of understanding, like I've been talking about in this whole video. If you don't get what I'm talking about now, I really don't know what to tell you. But, coming to a point of acceptance with yourself that you don't have to be and you're not one thing or the other, that you're both. And it's like you have to not only come to that acceptance and that understanding within yourself, but you have to kind of like embrace that. And I've been learning, as I've been getting older and as I've been, going to college and becoming an adult, how to embrace that. And I realized like, wow, like I have a lot of things regardless if I know, the culture and ethnicity on my mom's side or not, I can still appreciate just being black. You know what I'm saying? Like black people know we have our little things that, and being on my dad's side, like I can just appreciate being Italian, being, physically white because of that. And, like I said in the beginning of the video, I have very, very strong Italian roots. And it's like, why do I have to feel like I don't belong and I don't have a sense of belonging when I do? I'm proud to be Italian. Like, Italian food is good, y'all. I mean, I'm lactose intolerant. You can only imagine how that goes down in an Italian household, but not really good, But that doesn't mean, I love Italian food. I love Italian culture. I love, the smell of meatballs, I love the smell of meatballs and pasta sauce on Sundays. Like that is something that, is so unique to my culture and that, a lot of other cultures might not understand. And I take pride and I take so much love and I carry that with me. And like I said, regardless if I know, ethnically where my mom's side comes from, I take pride in the fact that, I have strong black women in my family. I have women who are so ambitious, and break the standard and prove that black women belong in the industry. They belong in doctors' offices. They belong in corporate businesses. And that's what I've been shown that through my own family. And that is such a beautiful thing. And that's what I'm saying is I really have the best of both worlds and I'm able to talk to you guys. And this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to start a podcast because, and this is, like I said, this is not to toot my own horn, but because I have this mixed perspective in the best of both worlds, I feel like I can portray and give you guys so much more. Like I genuinely feel like I can talk and see things from many perspectives. And so that's one of the beauties that I want you guys to carry with you. If you're watching this and you're a mixed individual, like I really, really hope that you get something from this because being mixed, y'all, is truly, truly beautiful. All right, you guys, I know this episode might have been a little bit longer than usual, but I really, really thank you guys for tuning in today. Like I said, again, happy Monday. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're listening to this in the morning or if you're listening to this at night, good night, or in the middle of the day. Y'all stay productive, stay happy, stay healthy, and I wish you guys the best. I'll see you in the next episode.